You pressed it in? Okay. We're in the middle of chapter 3 in the Maimer, Yehi Hashem Elokeinu Imanu. We quoted a sikh of the Frierdiker Rebbe from Gimel Tammuz that he said as he had been released from prison and was on his way to exile. And so he started by saying, we ask by the Eibishter, we ask by God, and he quotes the pasuk, Yehi Hashem Elokeinu Imanu, that he be with us. And he says he asks that we request that he be with us, and we're certain that he'll be with us as he was with our fathers. And then he goes on to talk about standing strong and not buckling to the pressure of communism, and obviously to defy them and to continue to practice Yiddishkeit proudly and openly. And the Rebbe asked a number of questions. He asked, first of all, in the Sikha itself, the way the Frierdiker Rebbe translates Yehi. So Yehi could be translated as a request, and also, as we said, guarantee or an assurance. What was the word used last? Assurance. But it can't be both simultaneously. They seem to contradict each other. It's either you're asking or you're certain. It's either certainty or it's a request. So the Frierdiker Rebbe uses both terms to translate the word. So that was one question. Another question was that he says that we're asking and we're certain that God will be with us as he was with our fathers. And he explains, what does it mean as he was with our fathers? That even though our fathers, in a sense, deserved that Hashem should be with them, let's say simply. Why? Because they had Mesiras Nefesh B'Poil. They had actual Mesiras Nefesh. So we're asking, even though we're obviously we don't have Mesiras Nefesh, but we're asking, nevertheless, he should be with us just as he was with them. So the Rebbe asks, Frierdiker Rebbe is saying the Frierdiker Rebbe he was in this situation where he was saying this because of his Mesiras Nefesh B'Poil, because of his actual Mesiras Nefesh. Furthermore, the actual uttering these very words was an act of Mesiras Nefesh. So what does it mean when he says that we can't compare it to our fathers who had Mesiras Nefesh? So somebody asked, just to follow up, somebody asked, there are different degrees, but even so, the idea here, that in an action, everybody is seemingly the same. You either do something, you don't do something. So yeah, you can do something better, you can do something, but in the actual act, everybody's equal. You put on tefillin, everybody puts on tefillin the same way. It's the intention that you bring to it maybe is different, but the act itself is the same. So if we're talking about Mesiras Nefesh, not in theory, not in your preparedness for Mesiras Nefesh, you're talking about Mesiras Nefesh B'Poil, actually doing it. This is an actual act of Mesiras Nefesh, so why is he saying that we're not? And to say that he was just being humble also doesn't sit well, because you can be humble when it's something that's within reason. Reasonably, we can assume that you're not living up to whatever it is that you're espousing, even if you are, so that's humility. But to say something that's an outright lie is disingenuous, it's not humble. So we have to understand that. And then the Rebbe asks about the pasuk itself. In the pasuk itself, what does it mean when we say Yehi Hashem Elokeinu Imanu? What does it mean that we're asking that God be with us? When you say that you're with someone, if I'm with you, that means that you're the main player here, and I'm just secondary. I'm tagging along. I'm the secondary party here. So when we say that God should be with us, as he was with our fathers, so who's the main primary actor here is our fathers or us. And God is sort of tagging along. He's with us. Right? Like I'm with her. She's the main person. She's the candidate, and I'm with her. Right? So we have to understand that as well. So,
no, maybe she's ahead and we're just training on her.
I'm sorry?
Maybe she's ahead and we're just training her.
Right, exactly.
No, she's the boss. God
exactly. When you say with,
Hashem is the main one.
No. That's when you say that I'm with Hashem. But when you say Hashem's with me, then it starts with me. I'm the main player here, and Hashem is with me. The other question he asked in the pasuk is, it says, Yehi Hashem Elokeinu Imanu. We're asking that God be with us. So he said, if you said Yehi Hashem Imanu, that God, as he's transcendent, as he's removed, that he should be with us, that would make sense. But when we say Hashem Elokeinu, the meaning of Elokeinu is that he's with us, that he's ours, he's our God. So if he's ours, that means that there's a connection, there's a relationship. If there's a relationship, then why are you asking that we should be connected? Right? Okay. So we started to explain that when we talk about this idea of Imanu being with us, so we're talking here in the pasuk, we're talking about the idea of Yiras Shamayim. We're going to get into in a moment, we're talking about Mesiras Nefesh, but there's certain things in serving Hashem, that certain methods or modes of serving Hashem, that the primary and the secondary are different. So when it comes to loving Hashem, So Hashem is primary and we're secondary in the sense that, a person, what do you love? A person loves things that are lovable, right? So something is lovable, and because it's lovable, therefore I love it. So my love towards it comes, in a sense, from it. So the main thing is the lovable thing, and because it's such a lovable thing, therefore I love it. And the same is true with regard to the Eibishter. When we talk about loving Hashem, Avas Hashem, what does it mean that you love Hashem? It says by Matan Torah, Kaf Aleim Har Kegigis, right? The Gemara says that before Hashem gives us the Torah, He picks up the mountain above our heads, right? That's a very misunderstood Gemara. Chassidus explains it so beautifully, and so it's such a fundamental explanation that the idea of Kaf Aleim Har Kegigis, Hashem picks up the mountain over our heads. So the whole idea of picking the mountain up over our heads and therefore forcing us to accept the Torah, the Rebbe touches on this point a little bit also in the Vata Tetzav actually. So this idea it symbolized an incredible love of Hashem to us. What does it mean that we were coerced, we were forced into accepting the Torah? What it means was that when Hashem reveals Himself to us, how could you not accept the Torah? Hashem comes to you and opens Himself up to you and says, "This is the most important thing to me. Could you please do this for me?" Well, you're going to say no. How do you turn Him down? He's showing so much love to you. You can't help but reciprocate. So it's not that the simple meaning and understanding of the Gemara is that Hashem threatened us. He said, either you take the Torah, I bear you, take for us. So how that works is not the subject here of this class. We're not going to get into that. But the point is that Chassidus explains, it's not that he was coercing us or threatening us, that if you don't accept the Torah or something, he was revealing himself to us. And it all comes in a larger context. He takes us out of Mitzrayim, he splits the sea for us, performs all these miracles, and then we come to Mount Sinai, and suddenly he opens up to us in such an incredible way. How could we not accept it? So what does it mean that we were forced into it? It means we couldn't help but say yes. We didn't have a choice because we were overwhelmed by the love. So it didn't come from us, it came from Him. When He reveals Himself to us in such a fashion, so you can't help but love Him. So love, the object of my love, the object of my affection is the primary thing, and my love comes as a reflection or as a result of that. But when it comes to yira, when it comes to fear starts the other way. Fear is initiated by the person. We talked about in chapter 2 about the idea of oitzer yira shamayim, the term oitzer, right? The pasuk yiras Hashem oitzarei, and the concept of oitzer yira shamayim is we find in Gemara, we find in different places, Chazal, that yira, fear of Hashem or awe of Hashem, reverence of Hashem is referred to as a treasure. Why? Because as the Rebbeinu B'chai explains, just as a treasure is amassed from others, so the same is true with yira. That comes from, it's not initiated by Hashem, it's initiated by us. And we explained in the first paragraph of chapter 3 that it's like a servant to a king or to a master. You think about somebody that you revere, somebody that you really, really admire, that you really look up to, that you really respect. And somebody that maybe even you never met them before. Imagine what you'd be like when you meet them. You're going to be tongue-tied, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be uncomfortable. Why not? Unless your idol is a mass murderer, there's no reason to be afraid of them, right? So the idea is that it's reverence. We talk about yiras Hashem, we don't mean fear of Hashem, fear of punishment, fear of that. We talk about the greatness of Hashem. You're overwhelmed by that, so you're in awe of Him. And you shake and your heart is pounding differently because you're in the presence of greatness. You're intimidated is also, it has also a little bit of a negative connotation, but it also could mean the same, it's related. So you're overwhelmed by that awesomeness and your smallness. That's one aspect of you. There are many different levels, but the point is that, so imagine, you walk into a room with your friend, you take your friend and say, we're going to see, whoever, my childhood idol, right? You go together, this guy's never heard of this person. So what happens when you come into the room? You both are having very different experiences. You are shaking, your palms are sweating, right? You're nervous, you're overwhelmed. And your friend who's never even heard of this person comes in, is acting normal because they don't know who this person is. They don't think of this person as anything special. They don't know what this person does. So your fear or your anxiety or that intimidation, all of that is self-generated. It's because you pick that person up to a different level. So once you accept that person as supreme over you, as having supremacy in some way, shape, or form over you, so suddenly that generates that awe. Whereas, so that's different than love. So when we talk about yiras Hashem, that's the idea of yiras Hashem, that it comes from within the person himself. So therefore, when we say Yehi Hashem Elokeinu Imanu, God should be with us. So if we're talking about yiras Hashem, so it makes sense that we're the primary and Hashem is with us, the secondary, because yira is generated from within ourselves. Now, the second paragraph of chapter 3, we're going to take it to another dimension of it, the idea of Mesiras Nefesh. That the same is true. We were talking about Yiras Hashem, right? And the idea of Eved, submitting yourself, being a servant to your master, to the king. So that's a level of Bittul B'Metzias. When there's Ava, when there's love, again, when I love something, so since it's generated by the thing that I love, so it doesn't transform me internally, it affects me in an external way. But when it's generated from within yourself, so that's an internal transformation. The person himself is transformed from inside. And the same is true with regard to Mesiras Nefesh. The Kivan Mesiras Nefesh U'Bittul B'Tachlis, since Mesiras Nefesh is total nullification of self, or B'Frat Kisha Mesiras Nefesh Yal In Yonim Ke'ele Shal Pi Din Tzivi Dilamayla Ein Muchayiv Limser Nafshei Aleim, especially when you're talking about having Mesiras Nefesh self-sacrifice and things that you're not required by law, by halacha, to have self-sacrifice. In other words, Mesiras Nefesh, being ready to give your life means what? Total self-nullification. You're all about self-preservation and existence, and Mesiras Nefesh and giving your life for something is totally eliminating yourself. Now you can choose death, let's say, over violating something, and that could be self-serving because you're exchanging one thing for another. So exchanging this life for a better life in the world to come, whatever, it could be self-serving. Real Mesiras Nefesh is not that. Certainly, when Chassidus talks about Mesiras Nefesh, it doesn't conceive of Mesiras Nefesh as saying that I'm foregoing this state for something better, for something greater. I'm going to have Mesiras Nefesh, I get the ultimate reward. The whole process of determining or deciding for Mesiras Nefesh is the idea of not wanting to disconnect from Hashem. It's not about getting anything, so it's not a self-serving experience. Could potentially be, but that's not real Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh means when it's not self-serving in any way. I'm giving myself. If I'm giving myself, it means that I'm not expecting anything, or I'm not motivated by anything that I'm going to get. That's what it means to give yourself. To give Mesiras Nefesh, you're giving your nefesh, you're giving it away. So that's ultimate bittul. That's the ultimate form of self-nullification. And so Mesiras Nefesh, and where's this more pronounced? So when I have a requirement to have Mesiras Nefesh you want to follow what Hashem says. So when Hashem says, there's certain mitzvahs, the three cardinal sins that Yehi Gal Yaver, that you have to give your life and not violate them, which even then, by the way, in halacha, if you violate them, you're not punished for it, but you're required anyway to have Mesiras Nefesh. So here you could say, in a way, it is self-serving. I do what Hashem wants. He tells me to have Mesiras Nefesh, I have to have Mesiras Nefesh. Like he tells me to put on tefillin. In a sense, it could be the ultimate form of Mesiras Nefesh is when you have Mesiras Nefesh when you're not even required to. Which again is also the scenario that the Friedrich Rebbe was in at the time of the Sikha. So therefore, that time, so Mesiras Nefesh is the ultimate form of bittul b'tachlis, of ultimate bittul, self-nullification. And as we said, ultimate bittul, putting yourself aside, cannot come from outside. It can't be forced upon you. It has to come internally from within. So therefore, the primary way a person gets to Mesiras Nefesh, the main component here, the main driver of it is the person himself. Because it's giving himself completely. So we're not overwhelming the self, we're giving ourselves. And that has to come from within. So now we can understand better what the Friedrich Rebbe in his Sikha, he quotes this verse that says that God should be with us as he was with our fathers. Why with? Because as we said, with implies that Hashem in this scenario is secondary to us and to our fathers. Because what was the Friedrich Rebbe talking about in the Sikha? As we said, he was talking about self-sacrifice. When he was talking about self-sacrifice, what was he talking about self-sacrifice? Not cardinal sins. He was talking about things that even al pi din you weren't required to have Mesiras Nefesh, which further highlight this idea of it coming from the person himself. And since when we talk about Mesiras Nefesh, the main thing here is the person's service, and the revelation from above merely helps the person along. So therefore the Friedrich Rebbe begins his Sikha, his talk on this idea of Mesiras Nefesh with a pasuk that says that God should be with us. Because we're talking about Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh, the main thing is the person himself, his decision, and again we'll learn soon, it's not even a decision really. not so much a decision, it's total, just giving yourself over completely. Here the person is primary. That can't be imposed on you, even from the Eibishter, it can't be imposed on you. In other words, the Eibishter could overwhelm you and you don't feel your existence. It's there, it's just completely overwhelmed. To give yourself, that has to come from the person, and therefore he uses this pasuk that says, Yehi Hashem Elokeinu Imanu. We see here, and we're going to see, it's going to become clearer as we move along, just the way the Rebbe's form of learning, the way the Rebbe looks at Torah, how everything is precise, and everything is significant, everything is meaningful, and you can learn something from all of these things. We're going to see in a moment that we're going to learn even more nuance. And not only a pasuk in Torah or a Maimer Chazal or a Gemara, but even a Sikh the Frierdiker Rebbe was speaking, and so the Rebbe is showing how every word that he said and the pasuk that he chooses to quote is not only is it precise, but it also explains the whole idea to us. Everything fits together. Everything comes together beautifully. That's when you have this idea of Torah's emes. You see the truth of Torah. You study in that way. So suddenly everything fits together in such a profound way. Okay, let's keep going. Dalet. Chapter 4. We said till now, im means that something is secondary to it, but it's connected, right? So when we say im, something's with something else, it implies that there's a connection between the two, that they're related to each other. The pasuk says, we just had this in Parshas Ba'aloischa, where the people complained they wanted meat, and so Hashem says to Moshe that he should gather 70 elders, and he should gather them to the oil moed. They should come to the tent of meeting, to the tabernacle, and he says they should stand there with you. They should stand there with you. And then God will, what happens is, then Hashem passes his spirit over them. They become sort of prophets like Moshe, we're going to see in a moment, and then together they are going to give the food to the people. Right? So over there, when it says, the pasuk says, they should stand there in front of the oil moed at the tabernacle with you. So Chazal say, imach b'daimin lach. What does imach mean with you? B'daimin lach, they should be like you. In other words, gather people that are similar to you. So dagam sheloshin im meir al davar tafel can also veis mikol makim yesh leidimin leiker. I'm sorry? We'll see. Even though we say that im, the term im with, means that it's secondary, so yes, it's true that on one hand it's secondary, but on the second hand, on the other hand, it's secondary, but something that's related to you, something that has a connection. So, es. The same we find with regard to the word es, which es generally is not really translated, right? But the word es, shemoyer al davar tafel, es also shows on something that is secondary. Kedrash says al pasuk es b'sarei es atafel b'sarei. The Gemara says it's talking about a sheir hanischal. So we're talking about an animal that's condemned to death. And so the halacha is that an animal that has to be put to death, you can't derive any benefit from it whatsoever. It has to be put to death, and there's no benefit that could be derived. So even though the animal has to be killed, nevertheless, so you think if the animal's killed, you can skin it, you can use its hide for something, maybe. So the halacha is you can't. The whole animal is asur ba'ano. You can't derive any benefit from it. What's the source for that? One of the days is es b'sarei. It says that es b'sarei. So es means also something that's tafel b'sarei, something that's secondary to its meat. The main part of the animal is its meat, its flesh. The skin, the hide, is secondary to it. So es also shows on something that's secondary. So mikol makim hu b'daim elahikar. S also shows on something that's secondary, but something that's also similar to the primary thing. In other words, you say what is tafel, what's secondary to its flesh, but that's the hide of the same animal. So there's a connection between them. Like Chazal say on the pasuk v'nosu itcha, which is later in that narrative of with the skenim, with the elders and the meat, where it says afterwards v'nosu itcha, they will carry this burden with you. Itcha b'daimin lecha. So itcha, the word itcha, with you, the root is es. So itcha also is similar. So it's secondary, or it's but it's also similar. So in the grammar books it explains that tafel ma'amirum is beloshin es, utafel yoser ma'tafel shebeloshin im. That what's the difference between es and im? Both of them imply secondary. Both of them imply also a connection between them. So what's the difference between them? The difference between them is im implies a greater connection between the two, and es a lesser connection. So with would be secondary, but similar, and es would be like we would say auxiliary, which is less of a similarity to the original thing. So Valpiza Beloshin S Iker Hadgasha Hu Shadavar Sha'imrim Alav S Hu Rak Tafel. Ubeloshin Im Iker Hadgashu Ala Dimin Shadadvarim. So if we're gonna we have a choice to use the word S or the word Im. So both of them mean essentially the same thing. They both mean with, except that Im implies a greater connection between the two things. Im means that it's secondary, but still connected. S also means secondary, but further removed from the thing that it's compared to, that it's attached to. So when I use the term S to talk about this a connection between two things, that implies that they're connected, but they're distant from each other. But when the Torah chooses to use the word Im with, it implies that even though it's secondary, but also they're similar, they're connected, so on the one hand, the word Im suddenly, this whole lengthy discussion here is getting to this point, which is on the one hand, Im implies that it's secondary, so it's less important. On the other hand, Im also at the same time implies that it's connected to it. It's more important than if I called it S. Where are we going with that? So let's see. So move on mizeh. So from this we understand she'ikar adgasha b'Yehi Elokeinu Imanu, hu lo yishavaya Elokeinu hu tafel k'vayachal adam ela hadimin k'vayachal shebeneim. So this teaches us that when we say that God should be Imanu, with us, that implies not just that God is secondary here, because we're talking about Yiras Hashem, we're talking about Mesiras Nefesh, we're the primary mover here. But on the other hand, it's not that God is completely secondary, completely not that relevant in this picture. It's also important. So we're talking about the connection between them. So you could say that the similarity between them is with regard. What's the similarity then? If I'm saying Hashem and us, and we're using the term Im, so we want to imply with Im as opposed to S that there's a similarity between them. So what's the similarity? The similarity is going to be with regard to the primary and the secondary. What does this mean? So he says, just as the perfection of a person's avodah is when the avodah is self-generated, when he's the one who initiates it, where in that sense the person, God is secondary to the person, as we said in chapter 2. The same is true in the reverse. So just as when we say that why are we saying that God is secondary here? Because the perfection of service is when it's self-generated by the person, so we're emphasizing the person's role as opposed to God's role. So in that sense, the person is greater in this picture, or more emphasized, and God is de-emphasized. But why do we use the term Imanu? Because just as in one sense, we're emphasized and God is de-emphasized, the same is true in the reverse. That when we talk about the ultimate perfection of our service is, on the one hand, while it's self-generated, but on the other hand, when it comes with complete nullification to God. That what is generating, what leads to that self-generation, that self-motivation, is the fact that you're totally nullified to God. The kivan shabituli lakadosh baruch hu bitul b'tachlis, since his nullification to God is complete. Lachin kol mitzvah gam kashal pi din ein mechuyev limser nafsh al zeh he etzlei ba'ofen she'ein shayich klal shalei l'chaima afilu k'shekiyumahu al yeh mesiras nefesh. So, what does this mean? That a person, on the one hand, he's initiating it. It's coming from within, and on the other hand, the emphasis is on God because he's totally batal to God. It means like this: that what is it that motivates a person? So a person could say, you can have a like sort of this outer body experience. You can have a miracle performed to you. God performs a miracle for you, so that's let's say a sign of great love from God. So you'll reciprocate. You'll be inspired for a while. The thing is that'll dissipate quickly because it's not generated from within you. It's something that came from outside of you. So a cause led to the effect, which is you doing it. But since the cause is outside of you, so therefore it'll only go for so long. So you have to generate it yourself. So when it comes from within you, though, so what's happening here? I'm serving God because I want to serve God. So I'm the main actor here. The emphasis is on me. I want to reach perfection. I want to reach whatever higher level. I want this or I want that. The ultimate perfection of our service that's self-generated is when it doesn't start with I. I want it, but why? Because of God. Because all that matters is God. I recognize that the only thing that matters is God. And so therefore, I want to get in line with that. So in other words, a person could, in the contrast, in Basi Lagani, the Rebbe talks about the contrast between Rabbi Akiva and Avram Avinu. Right? We're talking about Aviseinu here, the type of Mesiras Nefesh. That Rabbi Akiva yearned to have Mesiras Nefesh. Avram Avinu didn't look for Mesiras Nefesh. He did whatever God wanted. So on one hand, Avram Avinu's service is self-generated, came from himself. Avram was Hikeres Bayre. He found God. God didn't find him. And yet, even though he's the one who finds God, it wasn't like he was looking to accomplish anything. He wasn't looking to notch any levels and master any levels of self-perfection. He comes to recognize God, and all that mattered was God. So therefore, you need Mesiras Nefesh. You had Mesiras Nefesh. Whereas with Rabbi Akiva, the contrast is that he looked to achieve that great level. True, he didn't want it for his own benefit. He wasn't looking for it because he wanted a reward for it. He was looking at it because he appreciated the value in it. Right? But to contrast the two of them, Avram Avinu's was not at all about him. So on one hand it's self-generated, on the other hand it's not at all about him. And this is what's implied when we say Imanu. That Im means on the one hand that it's secondary, but on the other hand that they're similar. In what way are they similar? That each one has an advantage over the other. That for your Avodah to be complete, it needs to come from within yourself, and for your Avodah to be complete, the main thing has to be God, not you. So you need both of those to form a complete Avodah. How are we doing on time? We're going to continue. Okay. So, Mr. Shem, next class, we'll hopefully finish the Maimer. We'll get to note 26 and finish this thought here.
So it seems that the proof would be that when God's visiting him, he's going to be like you and be with you. Right?
Is it a turn?